Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad to hear this Monday morning. Getting ready to start a great week of outdoors and all kind of information and stories, and you're going to really enjoy our guest this morning. First, let's take a look at our weather, brought to us by Gulf Coast Air Conditioning. Drew Pollard and his hard-working crew up there in Southport, looking at a high today of 73 and a low of only 62. That sounds more like springtime, doesn't it? As we start wrapping up the month of March, I'm looking for that lamb acting like a lamb weather to be coming up. But our water temperature is going to be 68 degrees, and the Monday moon phase, we still waning. We got a full moon coming up next week. We're looking at a situation where the wind is still low in double digits. It's going to be coming out of west-southwest at 10 today. The tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn. Good tides. We're looking at a low tide this morning at 5:41 and a high tide at 8:27 tonight. We're looking at a pretty decent week. We've got some rain coming in maybe toward the end of the week. The rivers are going down. We'll talk about the rivers tomorrow. So we're going to do good short weather like this because we've got so much to talk about today with our guests. So let's go ahead and take our break, and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back on Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors, Elaine Dillard. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
He's the state chair of the Karp Anglers Group, okay? We talked about it last week. We're gonna have some experts coming on here talking about the carp, and he is an expert. And tell us a little bit about yourself. You're coming down from South Alabama, a little community, Black Alabama.
Yes, sir. I grew up right on the state line. I mainly was running around on the Chattahoochee River growing up, and I started seeing these big yellow things jumping out of the water, making big slap sounds, and I kind of got to digging around on the internet and got to learning that they were common carp. And I got to looking at maybe how to catch them. I've always been a little bit of a contrarian. I've always liked to try to catch things that other people don't like to target. And I found these videos of these guys over in England catching these big, like 20, 30-pound fish with these cool big scales on them, and they look like they pull hard, and as soon as they hit the bait, it just takes off screaming for the state line. And it's something about it. When I hooked the first one in probably 2012, I immediately put all my bass stuff to the side, and that was out of the window from then on, and this was the thing that I wanted to catch.
That is cool.
So it just all went from there, just learning stuff, digging on the internet, learning the tricks to taking what they do over there that we don't really get, or we don't get without having to buy it, pay for it to be imported, wait 6 weeks to get it, and what we can do here with what we have in the U.S.
Okay, and let's differentiate with the carp. That's a great background right there. It's not the common grass carp like we have up in Deer Point Lake, is it?
Yes, sir. These are common carp, the Cyprius carpio. I don't know the scientific name for grass carp, but they're as closely related as, say, a white-tailed deer is with a European red stag. Okay. They're in the same family. They're both in the minnow family, but they're not direct ancestors of each other. They're not straight across. It's not like, say, the whitetail is with the mule deer or something like that. They're fish that are in the same family. They're in the same group, but they're not very closely related. The grass carp are actually one of the four Asian carps. Okay. With the black carp, the silver carp, the big heads, the ones that jump out are the silvers that everyone worries about. But the common carp were actually intentionally brought here in the 1800s as a food fish because they can live in pretty much any water. They're very, very tough fish when it comes to their water quality issues. They can handle anything. With that being said, they don't degrade water quality like a lot of people say they do. They don't destroy fish stocks. They are just tough enough to handle things that will kill other species of fish. They're the closest native thing that we would have would probably be the big buffalo suckers. That we don't have them here in Florida. They're pretty much in their range at the Alabama River. Okay, but that'd be like a cousin to what we call a little red horse sucker. Yeah, they're in the same family as the red horse. They're the largest member of the red horse family. They get up 70, 80, 100 pounds. They're monsters. I've caught one in my life over in Mobile, and they're a really cool fish. And you know, this is so interesting to me. We've talked on the phone and all because
you know, there's so much out there. We think we know a little bit about everything. None of us, and I know y'all and myself, we don't know a lot about this carp and what they're doing, because a lot of it's centered sort of in the northeast, and you've been up there with those folks. But you're saying we've got people now coming from Miami to fish on the Chattahoochee River.
Yeah, there's a guy, I'm not gonna say his name, but he used to come up every weekend from around the St. Pete area.
Okay.
He is a roofer, so he'd work all week. He'd drive from St. Pete up here and fish one of the places that I like to fish, and he put a 30-pound carp on the bank every month for something like 24 or 30 months.
Oh my goodness.
There's not a lot of people anywhere in the U.S. that can say that.
That's legendary.
And we have a very, very prolific fishery here. We don't have a lot of the big world class. You're not gonna go out and put a 40-pounder on the bank like you can in some places. It's not like some lakes that we have here in the U.S. But what we have, because of our climate, is our fish grow very fast to a certain point, and then they don't need to get any bigger. It doesn't get cold enough to cause them to get bigger like they do up in the Northeast, where you can run into 40-pounders in the Northeast and the Great Lakes and stuff like that, because they have to get bigger to deal with the cold weather.
Okay.
Our fish it's a lot like our bass. You know, Lake Seminole is known for big bass, but it's not known for 15s and pushing 20-pound bass. It's known for the 5 to 10-pound range.
Right.
You know, 5 to 10-pound range bass is equivalent to a 15 to 20-pound carp.
Okay. Right.
So they'll jump up into that range and just hang out there. So we've caught fish that we estimate to be over 20 years old that are only weighing about 24, 25 pounds.
Okay.
And
That's interesting.
These fish, they live a long time. They're powerful, powerful fish. Whenever they get in the river current,
Well, you
they're
said head for the
gone.
straight line, right?
Whenever we catch them over in Geneva, I always say when they pick the bait up, they head for the state line. They're like a moonshiner with the lights on behind him.
I like that. We're going to take a break. We've got some great pictures here. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Elaine Dillard. Okay, welcome back. With Elaine Dillard here, drove down an hour and a half from South Alabama to be on Panhandle Outdoors. Brought me this nice coffee cup with a big old carp on it. I'm going to drink a cup of coffee out of that tomorrow morning. So, Elaine, thank you so much. You sent me some pictures, and this is exciting because first of all, I was going to tell you a place to go to catch them, and also some good shots here. So let's talk on this one right here, the first one.
Yeah, sir. That fish right there is a good example of one of the things that we like to promote with Carp Anglers Group, of proper carp care, just not standing up with these big fish. You know, you're 4.5 foot off the ground when you're holding a fish at chest height to get a picture, and a fish that size, if he flops out of your hands, can do some serious damage when he hits the ground, and that's something that you can really take with any kind of fishing. You know, I've seen people at the jetties.
Yeah.
They catch a nice big bull red and they come up to the top to get the picture took with it, and as they go back down, he kicks and then he bangs his head off the rocks and he's floating belly up. That's a big breeder
and
that's gone.
Y'all are big proponents of a catch and release.
Yeah, we're proponents of catch and release. Of course, if you want to take some home, go ahead. That's your prerogative. But we always say to release the bigger fish, like with anything. Those are the ones that make the babies. And with carp especially, they can be 20, 30 years old.
Wow.
And like this fish here is a fish that I call Larry. Me and a couple friends who fish this area over around Chattahoochee, we've caught him several times, and he's very identifiable by that hook in his back and how tattered up his tail is. He could be in excess of 20 years old just based off the damage on him and how his head's shaped, and he's a real unique character of a fish.
That's cool to catch the same fish. He got a name, so you call your buddies up. Hey, I just called Larry again.
Yeah, I've posted pictures in the Carp Anglers Group forum and on Facebook, and they'll be like, "Oh, Larry's back," because they've seen him so many times. I think I had him 3 times last year.
Oh, cool. And folks, if you don't recognize, that's the Chattahoochee Dam with Jim Woodruff Dam back there in the background. So you see an area you can go and catch them. I know that's a pretty area to me.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool area. It's not as pretty after the hurricane, but really nothing is. This fish here is actually my PB. I caught it in June. That's a 25-pound and change common right there.
Wow.
If you're wondering why I ain't got my shirt on, it's kind of a thing when you catch your PB carp. Someone usually throws a bucket of water over your head. Well, I was there by myself, so that's actually a screenshot grabbed off of a video where I held it up after I weighed it, turned it loose, and dumped myself into the river. And when it's 90 degrees in June, that's kind of.
You got baptized again. That's good.
Oh yeah.
All right, what about this one?
This one here is a unique character. I ended up not sending you a better picture where you could tell. It's just it shows how these fish adapt to their environment. These fish are a generalist as a species, but they're a specialist as an individual.
Okay.
Whenever they're introduced into a system, and these fish have been here they've been in the Apalachicola River probably longer than flathead catfish and spotted bass have.
Really?
They were probably introduced up around Atlanta and made their way down, and they've been here since probably the late 1800s.
No kidding.
But that fish there makes his living specifically in the roots and in the bank picking mussels out, and he's got and a lot of fish in that area have very, very specifically shaped faces for doing that.
And that's interesting. So they dig on the side for those mussels. That's a natural bait.
If you go back to the picture of the PB.
Okay, right here.
Yeah, that one. This thing in the landing mat here is actually a weigh sling, and it floats. You can put a fish in it and zip it up if you catch a fish at night.
Yeah.
Or if you need to call someone over to get a picture, and you can let him sit in the water. You're not going to damage his gills or anything like that.
Okay, good.
And it also allows you to weigh the fish without damaging the fish, because a fish over 5 or 6 pounds, the only place on him you've got is to hook him in the gills, and that's gonna kill that fish.
That ain't good. Okay. All right, so we got that one. So then
this next picture here is one of the rigs that we use. It looks a lot different, but it's really not that different from what you would normally use.
Is that corn?
That is boiled deer corn that I use as a hook bait. I fish so much that instead of buying number 10 cans at $2-3 a pop, I buy an 8-pound sack of deer corn. And that makes a 50-pound sack of deer corn will make almost 200 pounds of carp bait once you boil it to the point where it's soft.
Yeah.
And it won't swell up in their guts. And you just put a couple pieces on your hair. And all that is I use specialty carp hooks they're relatively cheap. You can get them on Amazon. In a size 4, and you tie what's called a hair rig, which all that is snelling your hook, and you leave the tag in long with a loop in it.
There you go, folks. That's a rig right there. That's interesting. You can use your deer corn during hunting season, having it left over, just keep on going.
Yeah, I go through about 6 or 8 bags a year fishing, and that was last year, and I didn't get to fishing near as much as I wanted to.
That is so cool. Okay.
This is more of the rig. If you look into carp fishing online, that is just a simple boilie rig. It's the same thing, but it uses commercially available baits that you can order offline, and it's one of those things that if you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not. You can get by it. I know people who've caught many more fish than I have, and they've never used a single boilie. They've only ever used corn. Yeah, and this picture's not necessarily as much of a character or a big fish, but it's just a fun photo of one that got snagged up on me in an area where I could get to, and I had to swim out and get him.
Yeah, swim out of there?
Yeah, well, I'm standing in there, but
I love it.
It's just one of those things of trying not to leave fish tethered and things like that. Really, with any kind of fishing, if you can avoid breaking a rig off, or if you can break your rig off versus people who cut their line whenever you get snagged in someone's line, it's usually someone who just cut their line instead of breaking it off.
Yeah.
And this one here is actually a 45, I believe it was, pound grass carp. These are the ones that most people think of in the state of Florida whenever they hear of carp. They think of the canal whales down there in the peninsula, or you're in Deer Park Lake. You've got these big ones. This one was a wild fish out of the Apalachicola. Now these are totally protected across the state of Florida. You have to be very, very careful with them because they are made of glass. They will hurt themselves in a heartbeat.
Really?
Compared to a common carp will fight harder than just about anything. A lot of people compare them to redfish, especially people who fly fish for them. They really compare them to redfish a lot. But these grass carp, that 45-pound grass carp I thought was a 5-pound channel catfish till I laid my eyes on him.
Wow.
And this is that same fish as the very first fish that we showed. And this was the first time I caught her about 18, 19 months ago. And you can see there, I don't have a fancy mat in this picture. I just have a bed pad rolled up in a tarp so it doesn't wipe the slime off of them. That way the fish comes up, it doesn't beat itself up on the bank there.
Okay.
So you see these people using all kinds of fancy gear, and you don't need it. You can make do with what you've got as long as you're a little bit innovative. You don't need to go out and spend a couple $100 on a nice mat.
Okay.
Or stuff like that. You can make do. Just anything to not rub the slime off of them and not let them beat themselves down on the rocks.
That's neat. You can recognize the one you caught earlier.
Yeah, and if you fish the same areas a lot, you get to see things like that fish with the split tail, or you see fish that'll have scars in certain places. Like we've seen fish that probably got hit by a heron whenever they were, that big, and they're now 25 pounds, and they have this easily identifiable scar across both sides of their back that's about that long. And it's a really neat thing to see.
That is cool. I love the passion you're having for this. We're going to take our final break and come back and tell them. He went fishing a place that none of y'all have ever fished before, I promise you. And we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Amazing what we learned here on Panhandle Outdoors. I love doing the show, especially when we get guests like this that's coming in with something fresh and exciting. Let's take a look at our fishing game times today, brought to us by Blue Water Outriggers in Port St. Joe. Our time is 9:04 to 11:04 and 9:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. We talk about your group you have right here, the Karp Anglers Group. Tell us about it real quick.
Yes, sir. Karp Anglers Group is one of the largest society, whatever you want to call it, of carp anglers in the United States. You can go to our website here at karpanglersgroup.com if you're interested in maybe joining up. There's a forum on there where you can ask questions. Once you join, you get access to the Facebook page, which is a little bit quicker response time. Usually, you can show grip and grins if you want to. Get advice on I'm looking at this, looking at that. That's a good way to get up with me, either through the forum or through the Facebook page.
Okay. And you're the Florida State Chairman?
Yeah, I'm the state chair for the state of Florida.
Oh, cool.
Even though I do live just across the line in Alabama, I'm still closer than most anybody else in the state of Florida.
Here it is. You grew up fishing on the Chattahoochee River with your great-grandparents?
With my great-grandparents, yeah. Like I said, we used to go down near the mouth of the river and catch brim and stuff like that. Yeah. And these guys always caught my interest. That's
where your roots were, right there off Chattahoochee River. Now you've gone as a kid from Chattahoochee River to a place that just tell the story. I don't want to give it away.
Last year I started working on the road some, and I ended up with one of my first jobs when I was working on the road. I had a 5-day job in New York City.
New York City.
And when we were there, I got to looking around. I always carry a rod with me when I go on the road because I typically I'd work the night shifts and stuff like that and have a day off.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up getting to see two things that I've kind of always wanted to see. I got to see the Braves. I got to see the last half of the Braves playing the Yankees last year in New York in Yankee Stadium, which was pretty cool. Sure. And then when the game got over, I hopped back on the subway because the subway line, the end of it was Yankee Stadium, and it went straight back under Central Park to our hotel. Well, I hopped out at Central Park with my fishing rod in my hand that I brought to the Yankees game. And I went in Central Park at like 2 a.m. I didn't get a picture of it because I was by myself. I didn't want to lay a fish down and hurt it because a lot of those fish are very well known. And I actually got to catch a carp out of Central Park in New York City.
You bring that story right there. Now, is that amazing? You're coming up there, and I just love it. How big was the fish?
It wasn't that big. It was about a 10-pounder. They're pretty small. They're pretty small ponds, so they don't get very big. It's not like down here where the small end of our fish typically run about 10 pounds.
Now, have you got a fish store to top that one? I want you to come on Panhandle Outdoors and tell it. You go to the Braves Yankees game, and then afterwards you go to Central Park and just catch a fish. We do it every day.
Yeah. So you want to talk about these guys?
Okay. Now he brought some parts here. This fish is sort of washed up on shore, tell us about this one right here, okay?
Well, the carp, whenever they feed, they have very, very fleshy lips on them, and people think they don't have teeth, but they actually do. These are the pharyngeal teeth, or phalangeal teeth. I forget how exactly to pronounce it. These are back in the throat area of the fish, and they use them to crush mussels and things like that. Because they're a suction feeder, they suck in and they're able to filter out something like 75 to 80% of the mud and just get the things that they want. And whenever they're focusing on clams and stuff, they use that to grind them up. They actually don't even have a stomach. They just have a really, really long intestine to get everything out of. So they're a really cool fish that way. And this right here is actually one half of the top spine.
Put it back down.
Is one half of the top spine off of about a 10 to 15 pounder.
That looks sharp.
It is, but it's also so big that it's not really a problem. Mm-hmm. It's not something you're going to have stabbed into you. The only time I've ever been finned, I had one kick just wrong, and it just kind of scraped across my arm, and the serrations got me. Mm-hmm. But it's really just to keep other fish from being able to swallow them, because they get big enough, fast enough that a lot of things can't really deal with them. Make a great food source for things like bass, but after 6 months, they're big enough that even 10-pound bass really can't handle them. But fish like your bigger long-nosed gar, if you get down farther in the Apalachicola River, your alligator gar. Those things can make a meal off of them really, no matter how big they are.
Yeah.
But they're a pretty interesting fish they're designed for a specific thing and they do a specific thing well.
Okay. Real quick, let's talk about your rig. What kind of rig you go with?
Okay, the type of rigs I use are typically just a simple standard hair rig on a short, about 8 inches at most. I do use pack bait, just a simple pack bait of cream corn and Jello flavoring and oats or panko. You don't need the special method mixes, and I just use simple flat, no roll sinkers. You don't need method feeders. You don't need any of this other stuff that you're going to see people recommending. You can just pack that stuff good around.
What pound test line?
I run 30.
30 pound test line?
I run 30 with at least a mono top shot. 15 is plenty in most places, but the areas that I specifically fish are very, very snaggy, so I need to be able to stop fish. Okay. It's really overkill. Most carp anglers across Europe don't go over 15 pounds. Okay. Ever.
And the reels,
Reels, I use, definitely recommend spinning reels. Do not use close face. I've seen them melt them together. Okay. They will melt the gears together. They will strip the gears out of a close face.
Are they headed for the straight line?
Whenever they take off, they run it. But I typically use bait runner reels, which are not widely available here. You can get them online, but you can just set your drag down very, very light. Okay. Because when that fish picks up, he will take your rod with him. Yeah. I like my bait runners so I can just flip them and then the drag's off.
That's awesome. Yeah. Turbulent water. We've only got 30 seconds. What kind of water?
Anywhere. Well, just show up in the morning. You'll hear them jumping, and then go to where they're jumping at.
Okay. Good point right there. Good point. Well, Elaine, thank you so much. What a great show, and we enjoyed having you down. Thanks for driving down here and sharing all this information.
It's good to meet you. Maybe one day I get to take you out and show you how it is.
We're gonna have to do that. I'd love to chat with you down fishing. Thank y'all for watching Panhandle Outdoors. Do something good today for your fellow man, and God bless.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.